since Rabbi Kaplan said it's connected to the Matzah and Eretz Yisrael, and the Rebbe always connected the bring Yeshua with the three kavim of Torah, Avodah, Gemilas, Chasodim. So we're going to have Torah today, and we'll say a posuk. Hoshiyeni Elihim Kivo Mayim Ad Nofesh. So we did Avodah, we said a tefillah, and I'm going to give tzedakah now. So whoever wants to join me in these three kavim would be bringing, like the Rambam says, machshava achas, dibur achas, ma'aseh achas. Now, one of the issues before I start, chinuch is a great sugya, and the whole yisoid of kol chinuch v'adracha is chanoich lenar al pi darkei. And over there, he describes, what a child has to have, nikoyin, and then older, what the chinuch is then, and then older and older. So when Rabbi Kaplan called me about the idea of a tomim, I told him that this audience, whoever I'm talking to now, is not my regular audience, and I believe there's a different stress when we're dealing with elementary, and there's a different stress when we're dealing with mesifta, and there's a different stress when we're dealing with zal. I'll give you an example of Bekitzer. That's not my focus. This is just a klein akdama. When we're dealing with mesifta, when we're dealing with kids, at an elementary level, so obviously the diuk is Yerushalayim, and things like that. Like the Gewalt von Abroche, the Gewalt von Aposik, v'chulu. That's more like mesifta. That's more like elementary. Then comes mesifta, and then it's more of Chassidish and Kudus, the Kabbalah sale, that idea. And then comes Zal, which is more like Gib sich weg im Ganzen, Mesiras Nefesh. So it's a different dogus. There's a different language that you speak to a Cheder Bacher, and a language of Mesifta Bacher, and a language of Zal. I'm just saying that. I think it's important to point out. So nevertheless, I'll try to speak some things which I believe is Negei L'Klal, and I'm not going to say things that say everywhere else because everyone knows everything. So I'll try to bring out things with a slightly different paraphrasing and a dogush, and I hope nobody minds. So the first thing I believe, which is the most important thing, which is more like an existential thing, is that the first thing is verbistu. So we're talking about the chinuch. Good chinuch means that the person, a tomim, has to have a strong sense of identity. So da azami zach says identity crisis, and I believe every normal mensch goes through such a stage. It doesn't mean that it's a crisis. Ki'ilu, he's ready to sever ties, but the machshavas go through his head. I'm going to read you from a Sikha of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Sefer HaSichas, Tovshin Dalid Purim. Listen to these words of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the way the Frierdiker Rebbe starts off. Jeder einer fragt amol bei sich allein. Every single person asks himself from time to time, Wer bin ich? Who am I? Weil das ist von Muhus Anushis. This is a trait of being a human. So hab mahakora in Muhus Atzmai, to have a self-awareness. Das ist doch abardas. Kemoi kein darf mir fragen bei sich, wer seinen mir? Mir seinen von Adas, Chassidei, Chabad, Shevet. Okay, anyways, so we see from this, we have to establish every kid, and it starts, by the way, I want to say one more thing, by the way, a lot of the things we're going to say now, ich red wie dringend darf sein, nicht wie sie is. And I'm speaking, I don't know what the eights is, how to instill this. This is like for another seminar. First, let's talk about what we're aiming for, okay? That's what the discussion is, what we're driving for. What we're driving for is that every single kid in Lubavitch, from Kindweizon, Mesifta, Zal, whoever it is, he has to have a very strong, powerful sense of identity. Was mir seinen mir, aber Chassidim seinen mir. So that means a positive identity, als a chosset von Rebbe. And this also means a gesunder Mensch, And now I'm going to read you another Hayom Yom, which I believe this is very important to many, many of the issues that we're facing today. And I'm going to read you what it says in Hayom Yom. We'll see what the way it's written in Hayom Yom, but then we could Hayom Yom Chof Tes Tevis. In Hayom Yom Chof Tes Tevis, he starts off and I'm Paul the Momanan. I'm skipping half the Hayom Yom, and he finishes like this: Hine Kol Havoida, he liskois lahamid talmidim gruntige Menschen. The whole point is to merit lahamid talmidim gruntige Menschen, to have. That means a stable, solid person. By the way, the Mefarshim Taichu is v'hamidu talmidim harbe. The Lashon v'hamidu means I'm a stelze avek. It's an infesta mention. Asher yiu mesurim belibam v'daitom el hakavona primis. That they should be dedicated to the cause. And he touches up she'enei maspik limud teira niglis v'chibu v'akodesh b'shmiras hamitzvos ki im tzrichim gam avodah shebelev. So how does Vitachman up the gruntige mention that he needs avodah shebelev? Was says davening or natut mit sich? Why is that gruntige mention? So this is where I'm going to add ulay yesh leimar. He's a gesunter mensch because he can take criticism. He's a gesunter mensch because he looks at himself and he has a healthy self-awareness. Where he sees a flaw, he sees a challenge. He's man enough to constantly work on himself. Das meint a gesunter mensch. This is a language, by the way, I'm speaking a personal grievance today. The Rebbe never lets me down. Every single video, the Rebbe tells a kid goes by Tivus Hashem. So we're talking about kids. And the Rebbe sees he's from Tivus Hashem, and the Rebbe will ask him, what's your rank? And the kid will say, lieutenant. The Rebbe will give him $1, become a general. It's so hepech what's going on today. What do you mean? The Rebbe told him to become a general? The Rebbe should have said, you're amazing. Guess what? The Rebbe never, never, ever let me down. There's not one video where the Rebbe doesn't go the way where he tells him, $1. I could give you 15 examples from every single person, walk of life, every single year, every single stripe, you name it. There could be a chassid who comes to the Rebbe, he gives him the book. The Rebbe knows this chassid worked on this book for 25 years. Here's $1. When's your next book's coming out? V'chulu, v'chulu, v'chulu. Und das meint a gesunter Mensch. Bist a gesunter Mensch, that means you're always working on yourself to do more and more. Und das meint gruntige Menschen. So that's a point. My point today wasn't even thinking of speaking about this point that I just said now. My point, what I wanted to say is gruntige Menschen. How you touch it up? I wanted to say today mainly the main point of gruntige Mensch with a very strong sense of identity. And that has to be through and through. Was mir sein in seinem Mir, ob mir sind Chassidim, Chabad Chassidim, etc. Okay? And I believe a gesunter Mensch, like I said, means that you're not frightened of growth and development. I believe, in my humble opinion, the greatest crime that we're all guilty of in the eyes of the Rebbe, call it crimes against humanity, is that we didn't maximize our potential. That's how the Rebbe would look at it. That's how the Rebbe would look at it in Das Tachten in every situation. Avades, Ashod, can sein verbunden mit der Likus. Okay, but in Pashtoisis, the Rebbe wants everyone maximizing alle seine Koiches, and then you'll be the most zufriedene Mensch. Weiter, that's the attitude of Chinuch. Machen a gruntige Mensch, meint tut mit sich, und wird als mehr gruntiger und gesinnter. Now in that spirit, speaking about gesunter Mensch, and Rabbi Kaplan mentioned that this whole thing is because of the Matzah Eretz Yisrael. Let's talk about soldiers. See Hayom Yom, Yud Beis Sivan, a gewaltig Hayom Yom. Sorry, Yud Beis Nissen. But das kommt noch Yud Aleph Nissen. Kannst machen a Simen in your head. Was kommt gleich noch Yud Aleph Nissen? Was man der Rebbe? Da sein Soldaten. And he goes into a whole arichas of the difference in an Eved and a Chayil. Sova, connected to Tzivus Hashem. See there, and the Nakuda, what the Rebbe says there is a Eved, Metal about Tzova is Mesiras Nefesh. So we're talking about Tomim. Everyone knows that this week, Ashgacha Pratis, this is the Chof Cheshvan, like Rabbi Levke said. And what does it say? The Sikha Yedu and the Rebbe Gimon Mizos Len Tovshem Memtes, Kol Hayetzel Milchemes Beis David. First we get Christus Licht. So that means in Timchi Timimim, we are interested in making commandos, Marines, special forces. Das ist doch die ganze Meise. Nicht stam a gesunder Mensch. See there in the Sikha of Kol Hayetzel Milchemes Beis David. I think it's behind Tovshem Gimel. Or Tovshem Beis, I forgot. Mistam Tovshem Gimel. So nicht nur, that's where, nicht nur gesund, nor stark. You'll see what he says over there. Was meint, I'm a king gain of Kol Hayetzel Milchemes Beis David. So now we're getting to another discussion. And again, this is not popular. My friends, this is not what's popular today. And I'm connecting it to Kabbalah Sale. I'm connected to another big subject. And this is where a lot of people have a difficulty today, the Sprach. Because on one hand, we have to have this you matter. But on the other hand, we have to say, let's talk the way it is. Al Pichsidis, calling in Achsidis is to take your ani and make it ayin. Make it nothingness. Take your ani, Aleph Nun Yud, and turn it into ayin. Bittel to Rebishter. And of course, if you're a gesunter mensch, let's get back to being a gesunter mensch. If you're a gesunter mensch, you're not threatened by it. Verkehrt. It's the greatest empowerment. Because kol be'etzem, k'moy etzem. You become like the Rebishter. And you know that you're a chilik elikam mal mamish. And it's not a problem. So let's now talk about being Kol Hayetzel Milchemes Beis David, and we're talking about the idea that a person is a soldat. So today the language is, let's talk about basics for a second. What does Chassidus teach us? There's Shalosh Klipas Hatmeis, there's Klipas Nega, and there's Kedusha. Shalosh Klipas Hatmeis is selfish. Klipas Nega is self. Kedusha is selfless or selflessness. Everything in life and in chinuch and for the future, you could, Lanias Daiti HaShofel, put it into these two categories: selfish or selfless. And it can go with every single step of your life. So the ganze thing from the chinuch or from Timchi Timimim is about cultivating your selflessness. If I wanted to be one of the public speakers today, I wouldn't call it selfless because they might get scared of it. I'd call it transcendence. Shkoyach, we'll call it transcendence if it makes you more comfortable. But das ist Yiddishkeit. Lech lecha, me'adzecha, me'laddecha, me'savicha. And in every step of the way, don't get me wrong, we're not judging anybody, we're not looking down on anybody. But everything is that question. One person wants to have 2 children in his life because he feels that more is too much because it takes away from his own life. Another person is ready to have 10. Let's say, we're not judging anybody. It's because he lives for others. That's what his whole life is about. And it doesn't make a difference how much less his life is going to be. And he doesn't feel threatened by it because fakert. That's what his life was about. That's what he was trained for. A person who's trained in Atzola or a doctor or for public service, he says, this is what I live for. I live for a higher cause. I live to be involved with something which is greater than myself. Und das ist Timchi Timimim. Al derech, the word to the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Kaplan, I think I came to my deadline. 20 minutes, he said. But nun das ist the word versteht in the Siche Hayedua von Achen Shapes Getavshan Amedvov, which is printed in the back of Likutei Sichos Yisofas Chelik Yudalid, and that's the word of Hanochas Atzmusei. I don't want to get into it now, but the source of this word is in Torah Shalom. And one of my mishpiyim, when I was younger, actually, from the Sifta, he always used to say, Atomim is Hanochas Atzmusei. Hanochas Atzmusei is Atomim. So what does it mean, Hanochas Atzmusei? That's exactly what Hanochas Atzmusei means. I'm a gitzechavek. It's not about you. It's about the cause. It's about the movement. It's about the other. So it's the opposite of selfie. It's selfless. And in the stage of your life, whatever it's doing, whether you're a bacher and you're learning, or whether you're a shliach, or whether you're a member of a community, or whether you're a painter, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're a dentist. That's what you're doing in Rishus. But the whole word of Teim Chitimim is that we educated you that the real thing that around which your whole life revolves is Vifel de Tus Fayenim. A Tog was from Tut Nishkan Teva Farazulas, if there's Nishkan Tog. If there's Moisdes in the community and I'm not part of it, I'm not making a contribution to the Klal communal conscious, then something's missing by me. Und das ist der Teich noch setz Musay. One of my favorite Ayem Yem, Stam, L'hoyer, is the Ayem Yem of Dalet Tammuz. That's the Yotzet of Rabbi Groner, und Taka, the Tog noch Gimel Tammuz, where he says, Chosid Echad, a Talmud Echad, that comes to a city, transforms the entire city, B'schus Rabbeim. And by the way, the Savort that goes back to the Alter Rebbe, by uns is a Yochid Arabim. Why is by uns a Yochid Arabim? Because every single one of us, every one of the graduates of Teim Chitimim, every one of us in our chinuch produces a gesunte Talmud, someone who's very healthy, that he can give of himself and be selfless, and he doesn't see it as a contradiction, and he looks at it, it doesn't diminish from his personality, it doesn't diminish from his identity. Adrabah, he feels it as the greatest empowerment. L'chaim, l'chaim.